This is a film about men, what they have been taught to be, what they are, and what they can become. What makes a man? Once the answers were easy. America was a man's world and men know it from earliest childhood. To be a man, they were taught meant overcoming nature and other men. To be a man meant devoting the better part of your life to a job or profession and working desperately to succeed. To be a man meant putting women in their place, whether in the kitchen, on a pedestal, or between the sheets, and keeping them there. Easy answers. But in an age of urban sophistication, corporate domination, and women's liberation, the old answers ring slightly hollow to a growing number of American men. On television, in books, and endless magazine articles, hardly a week goes by without some discussion of the new facts of life in America today. At first, it was simply an attempt by bewildered men to cope with women's lived demands for equality and a new form for sexual relationships. For one thing, American men were shocked to learn that women could have the same sensual appetites and even greater sexual capacity than the male of the species. Eventually, some men found it helpful to start dealing more openly with their own desires and fears, talking candidly with one another about their roles as husbands, fathers, workers, and lovers in a complex and changing society.
Hi, folks. I'm Tex Earnhardt, the Ford dealer at the corner of Baseline Railroad in Tempe, Arizona. And remember this, if you don't try us, we both lose money, and that ain't no bull. Thank you.
Liberate American men? Hell no, says Tex Earnhardt, a dynamic modern-day cowboy and millionaire auto dealer in Arizona. Tex is an example of American manhood in the old-fashioned frontier tradition. He's sure of himself and of his role as a man, hard-working, fiercely competitive, a benevolent dictator where women are concerned, as his wife Pamela candidly admits.
I guess you could say on the Western scene that the men really aren't too liberated. My husband is a good example. He likes the idea that I have my own interests and everything, but when it comes to the breadwinner in the family, he's the breadwinner, and that's all there is to it. There's no arguing about it.
You know, I'd like my wife to do whatever she wants to do, but when I get home in the evening back to the ranch, I like my woman to be very feminine, and I like her to have lipstick on, her hair combed, and I don't want her to have been working all day. It's some job that's got her tired out, or even I don't want her doing a lot of hard housework just before I come in the evening. I guess that's just my heritage in the Southwest. I've always thought that the man is the breadwinner. He's the man that's supposed to make the bread, and the woman, you're supposed to just kind of put her on a pedestal more or less as a queen.
I could provide for the family. I've always told him this. I said, if your business went down the drain, don't worry, I could provide for you. I don't know how excited he is about this, and I don't think I'd mind it either. I do like to answer to him, though. Maybe I'm a little old-fashioned as a woman, but I like to answer to him, and I like to, he's big and strong, and when I don't feel good, he puts his arms around me, and then I feel good again.
Cooking and sewing and sweeping and doing those hard chores that a woman has to do every day in a house. I think it's what breaks up a lot of marriages. A man, he's tired after he puts in a full day, and then he comes home, and then if he's got to combat wits with his wife, and she's been working hard all day, naturally, they can go to Fifth City pretty easy. That's my thoughts on it. And if a man can make a good enough living for his wife or keep the standards up which they want to live in, or she can be pretty relaxed and think of her main job of being just taking care of her man, her husband.
"200 years of American history went into the making of men like Tex. It began as a race for survival, from the first colonial settlements on the eastern seaboard through the Oklahoma land rush to the final taming of the western frontier. Frontier life created a model for the American male that continues to this day: independent, self-reliant, aggressive, and competitive. At first, he was totally free, a hunter, trapper, or scout. Even after he settled down, self-reliance was required. The men of early America had to build their own homes, shoot or grow their own food, and protect their families from Indians and outlaws. As the country grew more civilized, more sophisticated, the American man still liked to think of himself as the master of his destiny. But an increasingly complex economy, dominated by ever larger businesses and giant corporations, was beginning to make self-reliance irrelevant. Another threat was the growing influence of women on public life, a cleansing moral force, it was said, in the world of suddenly crowded, sinful cities and dog-eat-dog capitalism. By the end of the 19th century, women were fighting for political reform, for an end to the evils of alcohol, and, most of all, for the right to vote. World War I gave American men a chance to reassert their manhood, patriotically, on the battlefield. Said one editorial, "The biggest thing about a principle or a battle or an army is a man. That's really what you and the other chaps have gone over for, to demonstrate the right kind of manhood." But when they returned from battle, men found life and women as demanding as ever. By 1919, politically active females had helped win the fight for prohibition, and by the next year, they had secured for themselves the crucial right to vote. In the 20s, another kind of liberated woman shimmied onto the scene, the flapper. She danced, drank, and smoked, talked bluntly about sex, and often did something about it. She demanded the right to a home and a career. In short, she was saying that she was as good or bad as any man. It was a confusing time, but also energetic, exciting. Then came the Depression. It was the ultimate assault on a nation's manhood, a period of demoralization so severe that few who lived through it could ever quite forget.
Thousands of unemployed men and women today are struggling to keep their homes and family together. Won't you help them by sharing your better fortune with them? Remember, sharing does not hurt like suffering.
The Depression ripped away the last shred of self-respect, a man's ability to work, however humbly, to support himself and his family. Some men were reduced to selling apples or leaving home to seek work in far-off cities. Others could not even do that much. Where once his forefathers had mastered a continent, the American man suddenly found himself a puppet of larger economic forces that he could neither control nor even understand.
You don't even make enough money to buy me a radio. I have to run downstairs every night to listen to the radio. The way I have to scrimp and save, and you wasting money on paints. I'd like to know what you'd do without me. Oh, dear Oma. If only you had a grave where I could put some flowers. Why, you couldn't even ask me to marry you. I had to put the words into your mouth. I'd have been better off a widow. The only reason I put up with you is because I'm married to you. I'm stuck.
Yes, and I've stuck too. Motion pictures helped to sustain a suffering nation. By 1930, more than 100 million Americans each week were paying to escape into Hollywood fantasy. But it was not surprising that the movies began to reflect some of the same oppressive quality that was coloring men's lives in the Depression. The henpecked husband became a classic type, an exaggeration that every man could laugh at, although not without recognizing a bit of himself on screen.
Happy household hours just coming on, dear.
I'll be right down, daughter. Mr. Cross came home late. Go ahead and eat, and then do the dishes.
This is the Happy Household Hour, brought to you at this time by Happy Hour Bubble Suds.
But it was the Western hero who dominated American motion pictures and the model they set for American men. William S. Hart was one of the first cowboy stars. Even more than the real pioneer and plainsman, the kind of cowboy that Hart played was a man of iron toughness, and with so little sense of emotion, or so the joke went, that he was more comfortable kissing his horse than a pretty schoolmarm. In later years, cowboy stars would be transformed into pirates, detectives, space heroes, and they would take a quite opposite approach with women, stealing their hearts, then disappearing into the sunset. The impact on the American male was predictable. He played cowboys and Indians from the time he could walk. He proved himself in schoolyard fistfights. He repressed signs of emotion and sensitivity. The problem was that movie idols set inhuman standards, not the least of which was getting 22 shots or so out of just 2 6-shooters. For many moviegoers, nobody filled a pair of cowboy boots like John Wayne, and even today he is a classic model of what a man should be.
Oh, gentlemen, that takes.
I must have hit the wrong man.
Oh, say.
Had they miss competition. That's the thing that we all thrive on. That's what we breed on. That's what men breed on. That's what animals breed on.
The aggressive instincts of American men today support a complex world of athletic competition, from baseball, football, and prize fighting to the sometimes mystifying sport of bodybuilding. Here, the brute strength and destructive potential of the men involved is boldly displayed, but never really unleashed. Because they please men and women alike, competitive sports naturally reinforce aggressive instincts, starting with the very young.
See that fix? Thought I had that little shrub. Come on, fight!
He looks like a very ordinary little boy, but Danny Wagner of Cleveland was a local karate champion by age 7. As is often the case with kids, Danny's dedication to that form of aggressive competition was fired up and sustained by his father Dan, a man who clearly cherishes the old ideal of fighting your way to fame and fortune. Danny's father is a steel worker. He's been raising the boy by himself for years, since he and Danny's mother were separated. At home, Dan is both parent and pal to his son, a sensitive, single father. They cook together, they play together. But Dan has also forced young Danny into the mold of a fighter, convinced that this role will serve him well in years to come. When not in school, the boy is either training at a local karate center or competing in meets all across the United States.
Well, when my son gets hurt in karate tournaments, it hurts me probably more than it hurts him. Because it's just like I feel every punch that he takes.
He managed. Darren brought Danny in about 13 months ago, and Danny's been under pressure for these 13 months, winning, competing. We find that he has lost his aggressiveness. He is now a technician, a very polite fighter. He has respect now for others, whereas his father, in the other case, is directing his ego, his aggression, through the child at tournaments. For instance, Dan would like Danny to be more vicious while he's fighting. The win comes first, not the way he's fighting. Whereas Danny, with the mutual respect for his opponent, gets him to win by control technique. When he uses the aggression that his father is trying to get him to win, constantly win, Danny starts making too much contact. The aggression, being aggressive is not him any longer. And he's fighting this pressure he gets from his wife.
Why did he want Danny to win?
I believe it's his own ego. He's what he wants to do, what he no longer can do or feels he can't do. He wants his son to do, even to the point of canceling out the possibility of injury. Because there's always the point, Danny has split his lip and loosened teeth many times, but it was still win. Get up, continue. Win came first, canceling out almost the emotion between father and son, just to win.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
First place with 16 points, Danny Wagner. See,
Who really won the competition? What does it mean? Child care expert Benjamin Spock fears that too much emphasis on toughness may actually handicap a boy in adult life.
Certainly, this American tradition that a boy must be brave, must not show emotion, is drilled in from earliest childhood. I certainly remember from my own childhood that a boy is not meant to cry, a boy is not meant to show other kinds of emotions. I think certainly psychiatrists and I, too, as an educator of parents, have emphasized that this is a bad thing to do to boys and to men, to tell them that they mustn't show certain kinds of feelings, because the inevitable result is that the male, beginning in childhood, suppresses all feelings. He suppresses his own feelings, and then he suppresses awareness of other people's feelings, so that gradually he becomes an insensitive person, difficult as a husband, difficult as a fellow worker, difficult as a superior in work, because he regularly screens out the feelings of those he's dealing with, and he causes a lot of unhappiness.
Some men in the United States today are trying to break the old forms. They agree that there is too much old-fashioned competition, too much pressure to succeed, to be the boss. One such man is Dan Sullivan, a psychological therapist in New Jersey. Sullivan now spends much of his time at home, sharing the pleasures and burdens of raising his family. He says more and more men today are looking for a way out of the economic and emotional rat race of traditional masculinity.
Most American men are becoming resentful of the burden that's been put on them to compete with other men to make more money or as much money as other men make, to provide all the leadership and the authority and the financial structure, financial security in the family. More and more are simply rebelling almost naturally against the burden of John Wayne, Gary Cooper, and Freud, and presidents, and so forth. The whole thing had become a tremendous source of resentment on them, almost as much as the women. I think the women are really the source, have the deepest reservoir of resentment, but the men have a lot too. We have a lot too.
Writer Pete Hamill has discussed these changing values in numerous articles on machismo and other aspects of American culture.
I don't think the question really is men's liberation so much as it is human liberation. I think men and women are both trying to free themselves from the stereotypes that have kept them prisoners for so many years in this country and a lot of other countries in the West. I don't want any more myself to have the responsibility for thinking almost. I want to stop thinking. I want to stop judging. I want to stop having to know. I just want to be. The traditional definition of woman is that she's someone who simply is, whereas a man has to think and do. I want to just be and let my wife think and do some. I don't want to share it out, the advantages and the disadvantages. I want to share both out as equally as we can. Men in particular have to free themselves from a narrow, binding, false masculinity that has asked them to become heroic knights in armor, or the guy that fights the burglar, or the pure and driven paladin who will save men, women, and children from whatever catastrophe seems up the block. I think that particular stereotype has led so many men into lives in which they always feel inadequate. They can never feel that they are themselves because they're being asked to measure up to standards that are impossible. There are no heroes in life. There are human beings in life.
There are heroes in war, of course, but men like Hamill think that war itself is too often fueled by out-of-date notions of masculinity. American politics and foreign policy, they say, have become battlegrounds for the nation's spirit of competition, with more thought often given simply to winning than to the values that the men involved are supposed to be fighting for.
There are no winners here, but it will be a different story in November.
Wilson, Roosevelt, Kennedy, Eisenhower, all of them had what was essentially an international form of macho going for them. The Russians were not going to be bigger than us. The Germans were not going to be bigger than us. They can't push us around. They won't be able to penetrate our defenses. We are real men and we can't let them get away with that. I think it's those stereotypes translated to a national scale that led to the two greatest disasters in modern American history, Vietnam and Watergate. Vietnam was clearly a war that was fought over macho principles. It had nothing to do with any national interest other than the fact that Lyndon Johnson was not going to let Ho Chi Minh push him around. I think Watergate was a much more insidious form of that, but it came into a sense that we're all boys together in the locker room. That my boys are named Haldeman and Ehrlichman and a lot of other nice little shortcut USC types. And the other boys are the Democrats, and we're going to do whatever we have to do to stop them. I think that sense of macho competition, of contest, allows you to look the other way when it comes to obeying the law and playing by the rules, and to create a form of competition that ends up corroding the very nature of the society itself.
One way in which war corroded the nature of American society for the good as it happened was by liberating the talents and energies of the nation's women. In the Second World War, even more than the First, American women found themselves drawn into the working world, not only in special branches of the armed forces, but in critical office and factory jobs. Rosie the Riveter and her 6 million working sisters did well, and the men of America were worried, although propaganda films and newsreels tried to assure them that their women would gladly retreat homeward again at the war's end.
I like your job, Mrs. Stoner.
I love it.
How about after the war? Are you going to keep on working?
I should say not. When my husband comes back, I'm going to be busy at home.
Good for you.
Well, this job belongs to some soldier. When he comes back, he can have it. Oh, that's swell. My wife works, people think I can't support her. Oh, I don't mind my wife working, but who's going to run my home? Okay now, but what about after the war? The women will have all the jobs.
Many women did stick to their jobs, and millions more of their sisters joined them. Middle-class women entered the working class, as families increasingly needed 2 jobs to support the necessities and conveniences of modern life. And gradually, these women began taking a hard look at their second-place status in a man's world called America. Thus, the stage was set for another dramatic assault on the nation's manhood, the women's liberation movement. Women wanted equality, appreciation of their abilities, and respect for their sexual rights, including the right to legal abortion. Marching with her sisters in this 1970 demonstration is Betty Friedan, the mother of women's liberation and still one of its leading advocates.
No man, priest, politician, hospital committee, no man, no state should have the power to force a woman to bear a child against her will.
Bella Abzug added her political passion to the movement.
Making it clear that we declare that there is a women's liberation and a movement in the city of New York and throughout the nation of these United States.
Readily available child care facilities
that will ease the burden of the working mother and give all women an alternative to confinement in the home.
To change the conditions that affect us, we learn that we have the power to restructure the social institutions that today are structured so completely as man's world.
In my new book, It Changed My Life, I have an open letter to true men. And, ask, are they really afraid? Do they really believe that what's happening to women is bad for them? And they don't really believe it's bad for them. And I write about how the machismo, that figure that has been like the movie stars portray of the machismo of the American male, that's gone out. It's really going out. It's not, you know, when the women can be people in their own right, they don't need the man to be all that powerful, and the man has to be more human and not just a breadwinner. So he can be very successful, but if he doesn't meet a woman's real needs for intimacy and set, gentleness, all the rest, and really be with her, nor then he won't make it with that woman, no matter how much money he makes.
As you can see, this is the first week at my new home. I lived on the other side of Morristown, and I've moved to my own home this week with my 2 children. It's at the end of a 15-year marriage to a man I still care a great deal about, but with whom I had a number of differences. I met my husband 15 years ago when I was a college teacher, and he was a student.
I think one of the reasons that I became interested in Shirley and elected to get married was sort of along the lines of having a friend go with me. Second reason would be that I was very taken with her being exciting and extremely intelligent, and I related to that.
We immediately had a baby. I'm a product of the 50s when women were expected as a goal, no matter how individualistic or whatever their hobbies, to have a family, have a home in the suburbs, have a number of pets as the end of their goals of their lives.
She had been married previously, and that marriage was not providing the kind of things she felt she wanted at that time. I saw myself as being the kind of person who would meet many of those needs. I grew up in a family with 5 sisters. I knew I liked children, basically. I wanted my own children. And saw Shirley as wanting a home and family.
We began my husband's upward climb. He received his master's in business. He progressed through a major corporation. He received one promotion after another, involved us moving around from Chicago back to New Jersey, a variety of places within New Jersey. And all of this, I went along with him, still thinking that somehow or other I would, sometime down the road, resume my career.
The strongest feeling I had was one of having worked so hard for so many years for Shirley and the children to provide a level of income to allow us to live very well.
He felt committed to the corporate lifestyle. He wanted to succeed. He had a need to succeed. And it came in conflict with my need to have my own work and my own fulfillment outside of the home. He felt I was entitled to this fulfillment, but I still had to maintain the house and maintain our social life and maintain the children's lives at the same level that I had when I wasn't working.
What became apparent was that because I permitted the job to assume the very top priority position in all the things that I had to devote time to, is that Shirley began to feel that she was being left out, that the job came first, the children and the home maintenance took priority over her needs. Was she left out? I think in part, yes. I don't disagree with that assessment.
He was the major wage earner, and since he was making the major contribution financially, he felt that any other burden should be borne by me because he was keeping us in this life.
he felt, and this is true of many, many men, he felt that he didn't understand what it was I was complaining about. He thought I had everything.
The unfortunate thing is that, to whatever extent Shirley tried to communicate that to me, it was not done successfully because we didn't start working on the problem until we had both, I think, experienced some very severe shocks to the relationship itself.
Let's focus for a second on the whole question of male-female relationships and also the way men perceive other women. Now, in terms of the aggression that's expected of men, I think it's a very unnatural thing to expect us to be aggressive all the time. And I think what's happened in the last few years is the expectations of being aggressive, especially being aggressive in bed and performing well in bed, have escalated. And they've escalated because women are making certain demands on male performance.
I doubt that any man has really been prepared fully for the onslaught of women's liberation. It used to be that the male was fully in charge of the relations between him and a young woman who was there waiting by the telephone for him to call. Now, when the woman picks up the phone and calls and buys the tickets to the theater or pulls out her credit card in the restaurant, the man can be badly threatened. He can be threatened most of all, of course, when she grabs him by the elbow and pulls him toward the bedroom. And the unfortunate matter, of course, is that frequently he's not able to function, but he feels his masculinity threatened, or his notion that his own masculinity threatened.
So I've had men call me, for example, and say that they just don't know what to do because the demands of their wives and or lovers are escalating and they're not sure how to handle it. And I think it's a step forward that at least we're in a position in this society where men can come forward and say, hey, I've got a problem. And that leads to the question of men and men, that men don't talk to men very often in a very honest role. We're terrific in bars. We're fabulous in locker rooms.
Well, boys, I hate to bring up a good party, but you can't keep a one way. You know how it is.
That's right, JJ.
I'll say you can't, JJ. I can see you all understand, all right? Believe you me, boys, I've had the time of my life today.
We're just great at small talk, and we're very good at discussions about athletics and things out there. We're very external, and most of us are very facile conversationalists when it comes to talking about the stock market or when it comes to talking about how our favorite baseball or soccer team is doing. But by and large, we don't share intimacies with one another.
I always found men attractive too. I never thought of them as sexually attractive in terms of fornication. I think sexualities, we're all sexual. So I found men attractive. Now I didn't have the guilt about it that I did with women, but I never expressed anything honestly to men where I can now. I feel that that's not a problem. Or I don't have to say anything. I can just look at it. And it's fine. And through the men's center and in a dance group where there's a lot of bisexuals and homosexuals, I found out, God, you can even touch them, hug them, and kiss them on the lips. And that's it. There's no other expectation to that. I don't have to fear that I'm a homosexual if that's a problem for me, or I don't have to feel that there's a greater commitment in the fact of sharing something so innocently and spontaneously.
It's exciting. Now, one of the hopeful things I see about the men's movement in this country is that there are about 3,000 men's consciousness raising groups patterned somewhat on the women's consciousness raising groups all across the country. A small town like Spokane, Washington, near my home of Seattle, has 5 consciousness raising groups. That's tremendous. That says that men are starting to talk to one another in an honest way. I don't believe it's a major revolution. I don't believe corporate executives are sitting around discussing the intimacies of their sexual fears, but it is a beginning, and that's a very positive step about what men are doing in terms of getting to know one another.
My overriding problem all my life has been to find someone that I can really talk to and who talks back intelligently and humorously and confidently, and who is
who I can have mental and as well as physical orgasm with all the time. I think most people have what I can call orgasm gap. They can have orgasm physically with their woman, but they can't mentally, or they happen very rarely because of her mind or her heart that causes them to really fall in love with her over and over again. It doesn't happen very often. So I'm a romantic. And my whole life has been built around looking for romance. So. And the way of getting romance in my life is the price I pay for it is to be a house wife or house husband. Because I think that the way you have romance is through equality, and the way you get equality is to share what's always been the woman's work, and have my wife, have her own career, which she does.
The full-time house husband is still a relatively rare phenomenon, although a growing number of men must take on chores at home because their wives work. But what other men are being forced to do, Dan Sullivan has chosen voluntarily. He still sees some patients and works on a book about Gestalt therapy, but he also spends hours each day taking care of his home and a family that includes 10 children. 5 were his by an earlier marriage, 4 were his wife's by a former husband.
Dan does a lot around the house, and he's very, very good with the children. He's a wonderful mother.
I don't like the work at all. I despise it. But especially taking care of a small baby where you can't really, in some ways, share very much with it. It's very hard to be all day with a small child. But I'd rather share that difficulty with my wife and do it 50-50, to have my wife do it all and have the difference in our minds and spirits widen. It's already wide enough from the roles we've already experienced as men, as man and woman. I don't want it to get any wider.
You change the diapers?
Oh yes, surely. Yeah, if I change diapers and do all that sort of thing. I don't like it, and the first times I did it, I got sick. But it's easy now.
His feminism is, for a good part, ideological. He believes in it. He does, but it's still, as I was saying earlier, it's still very much. There's still a lot of barriers for us to go through before we're really equal in running the house, equal in yelling at the kids, equal in just voice power and those. Shall I put it? Those. They don't seem like very substantial things, but they are. Just automatically getting behind the wheel of the car, or paying the bills, in a restaurant, things like that.
Would you consider yourself liberated? No, I don't. No, I still find myself doing usually a lot more of the talking than my wife does. She defers to me sometimes when I think she can carry the ball herself very much as I can. I tend to see some of the power in big decisions about money or schooling or family, and I tend to think of myself as knowing more than she knows about certain things in life, politics, and that sort of thing. And on one hand, I like the power and I like the superiority, and on the other hand, I resent her for not being more confident, more verbal, more powerful. So it's a hard, long battle that we're going to have to fight.
That maybe the man back east, you say, is he's kind of staying home, taking care of the kids, doing the ironing and the washing, and she's out making a living. Well, if he can feel like a man after letting his wife or his woman do that all day, I could say more power to him. I know for myself, I would never feel right. I couldn't even live with myself, and that's when your own conscience comes into being. My conscience would bother me. Here, I'm a great big strong man, and I've got a female out doing a man's job, and it's not that it's always a man's job in life, but I think as time was begun from Adam and Eve, it's been kind of a man's world. The male has always been the aggressor. The male will be aggressor as long as time goes.
It won't be quick or easy. Liberation rarely is. Even men who feel a real desire to break free of old traditions will often be discouraged by society's scorn, but they will have to invent new lifestyles and make them work. Not all will choose to become fathers, but those who do will pass the new values on to their sons. Inevitably, the nation's social and economic system will be pressed to pay more attention to the emotional requirements of workers and their families. It will take energy, initiative, and imagination, and a clear vision of what it really means to be a man.
I won't say what a man should be, but a man needs to take the time to find out.